Sweet and Delicate, an MLP fanfic by Nordred13. Chapter 1. Magic and Music. Those were the two things that a unicorn named Coppermane lived for. Mostly the former. He'd been studying magic ever since he was a filly. He always kept to himself when he was younger, isolating himself from the outside world just to study more magic. Not that he didn't like talking with friends, but he didn't really have any. He lived in Canterlot all his life, and he never really cared for all the stuck-up and snobby attitudes of every pony who lived there. Even in school, every pony acted snobby, always ridiculing him about how he was uncouth and improper because of how much magic he'd practiced instead of his general studies. Copper always viewed himself as very plain. He didn't know what was so special about a pale white unicorn with brown eyes. Even his aura was a plain gray color. His name was reddish brown and always a little messy. Not an appearance that stands out too much. The only thing that really made him stand out was the fact that he was the only known pony in Equestria with two cutie marks, one on each flank, one being blue and violet sparkles on his right flank, and the other being a black wavy music staff with a treble clef on his left flank. While you'd think ponies would think that's amazing, Copper's classmates claimed that his cutie marks were fake, saying it was impossible to have two. Copper's cutie marks were as real as any other cutie mark, but he knew that arguing with his classmates would be a fruitless endeavor, so he just tried to ignore them. The only thing that Coppermane loved more than magic was music. Particularly, he loved music that was sung by a barbershop quartet. There was nothing more heavenly sounding than four talented voices singing together in harmony. He owned many records of barbershop quartets, and always sang along with them, longing to be in a quartet of his own. His classmates teased him about this too, claiming that it was not wholesome. As a result, Copper usually kept to himself about his interest in barbershop. After a while, Copper decided that he had enough of all this bullying and decided that he was going to try for his dream school, Princess Celestia's magic school for gifted unicorns. He had always dreamed of going to a school where he wouldn't be ridiculed for practicing magic, but rather it would be part of his curriculum. During his entrance exam, he had the privilege of having Princess Celestia herself in the audience. Princess Celestia was extremely impressed with his abilities, mainly when he demonstrated his ability to levitate. It had taken him many years to master that technique, but now he could do it with ease. Princess Celestia was so impressed, in fact, that she personally took Coppermane under her wing. It was a dream come true for Copper. Not only was he not going to be bullied anymore, but his new teacher was his hero, Princess Celestia herself. One day, Coppermane discovered a spell in his spellbooks that would possibly make all his dreams about being in a quartet come true. A cloning spell. Along with his studies, Coppermane also dove into trying to learn how to clone himself, in hopes that he could finally be in a quartet. He brought it to Celestia, and she helped him learn it. After months of training, he could finally make 3 stable versions of himself, and his dream was fulfilled. He had his own barbershop quartet. When he wasn't practicing his magic, he was practicing barbershop music, learning every part of every song out there for his own enjoyment. He never really intended to perform for any pony else, but nevertheless, he kept that fantasy in the back of his head. He dreamed of all the ponies in the audience cheering for him, and finally feeling accepted by every pony. That's what Copper wanted more than anything else, acceptance for who he was. One day, Princess Celestia overheard Coppermane practicing in the courtyard at the castle, and was blown away. She had no idea that he had such a beautiful singing voice. How could he keep that all to himself? She simply had to find a way to show off his abilities. He knew about Coppermane's past, but knew that he was, and still is, very socially isolated. She had to find a way to get him out and making friends, while also allowing him to show off his talent as a gifted unicorn. and as a musician. But how? How could she get Coppermane out of his shell? After a while of thinking, Princess Celestia had an idea. The Summer Sun Festival was coming up, and they still had to find some entertainment for the event. This year, it was being held in Ponyville, which is where another one of her students was in the same position of Coppermane, and ended up making lifelong friendships, and made them stay in Ponyville permanently. Maybe the same would work for Copper. Princess Celestia was aware that Copper disliked the stuck-up attitudes of Canterlot ponies, and Ponyville would be a great breath of fresh air for him. Plus, if he performed for all the ponies in Ponyville, they would all love him. Ponyville was probably the friendliest town in Equestria, and Coppermane would finally feel accepted for who he is. The only thing in the way of this plan was, ironically, Coppermane himself. The princess knew that it wouldn't be easy to coax him, but she knew that it was time for Coppermane to make some new friends, and this was probably the only way. That is the end of Chapter 1 for Sweet and Delicate.